fact, he does more than 100 impressions.
Terry Fator.
Terry Fator.
Terry Fator's Terry Fator.
Terry Fator!
Terry Fator.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ventriloquist Terry Fator. Take a drive down the strip and one face pops up with an awful lot.
Your show is a huge hit. You're headlining the Mirage. What a deal.
How did you discover this talent?
Last one to know, last one to show. I was the last one you thought you'd see there.
Shut up! That's great!
Wow, a lot has happened in the last few years, but it wasn't always like this.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. How are you today? Welcome to Conversations with Norm. I'm Sean Tempesta with Afternoons on Exciting 4.1 and co-host of the Morning Blend on Channel 13. It's my honor to be here today as your announcer. And today's show is very special in the fact that it's the first Conversations with Norm, and also in the fact that it is a fundraiser with proceeds benefiting the Smith Center's Education Fund. Now, both Norm and Terry, they have agreed to donate their time for this one-of-a-kind event to you. Before I introduce the stars of our show today, I'd like to take a moment to thank the generous and supportive sponsors that have made all of this possible, including the Smith Center, the Downtown Container Park, Southern Wine and Spirits of Nevada, Tal Studio, my employer, KTMV, Channel 13, watch, thank you, Clear Channel Outdoor, and Las Vegas Review Journal. Now, without further ado, are you ready for the show to begin? Are you ready for the show to begin? I welcome to the stage a longtime celebrity columnist from the Las Vegas Review Journal, Norm Clark, and Season 2 winner of America's Got Talent and popular strip headliner over at the Mirage, celebrating 5 years. Give it up for Terry Fator.
Well, thanks for being here, you guys. I really appreciate it. It means so much to me, especially, I can't thank Terry enough to be my first guest. We've sat down a couple of times, and I guarantee you're going to walk out of here and say you've never heard such an incredible backstory of a headliner in this town. So let's get right to it. Born in Texas. Started singing at 3, ventriloquism at 6, first puppet at 10, and I believe 14 or 15 you moved from Dallas to Corsicana. Fill us in on the impact of that move.
Yeah, like I said, I started very young, knowing I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to entertain from the time I was 3 years old. Moved from Dallas to Corsicana, and Corsicana was about 50 miles south of Dallas, and it was a very small town, small community, about 25,000 people, much more intimate than anything I experienced in Dallas. And they had a community theater there that I got started in, and it was really the first time I had a chance to learn how to get on stage, learn how to just feel comfortable on stage, and it was incredibly vital to my career.
And one of the key pieces to this was that this was the first time that your father really allowed you to really blossom.
Yeah, I grew up in a home where my father was unbelievably authoritative. He was very controlled every part of my life growing up. There was never an opportunity in his mind that he was going to keep me a child my entire life. There was never going to be an opportunity to become an adult and begin making my own decisions. We were raised in a very religious atmosphere, and it was a thing of, he would tell me that if I ever went against his wishes, I would go to hell. And I grew up with this intense fear of going to hell growing up. And every time I disobeyed him, there was the threat of God cutting me off and sending me to hell. So I had to walk this fine line, and I was trying to figure out why in the world he would have allowed me. And Norm and I were talking about this in pre-interviews, and I was thinking, it doesn't make sense. Why would he let me get involved in this community theater? And then it hit me. My father's a narcissist. He's severe narcissist. I mean, my dad's slogan is, "How could you possibly be hungry? I just ate." And I mean, literally, that's my dad. That's how he thinks. He thinks the world revolves around him and his emotions. So what I had to start doing was I had to start thinking in terms of what would he have gotten out of this. And then I realized what he wanted was to put me on stage and let me get comfortable in front of an audience so that one day I could be his mouthpiece. He felt like he was one of the great religious people in the world, but he was not a good speaker. So he was honing me to be that mouthpiece later on in life.
And it was at this time, I believe, that you were part of the family janitorial and steam cleaning. And when I said family, it was you, your mother, brother, and sister, but your dad was not involved.
No, he was lazy too. Narcissist, lazy. Wouldn't work with us. So
Studying the Bible.
Studying the Bible, yes, that was his big thing. But yes, my mom started a janitorial business. It makes me laugh because she's very ashamed of this. And she wrote a book. Her book is called Keeping Laughter Alive. And she said, "I'm not sure how people got the impression that we were janitors." And I'm like, "Well, because we were janitors." Like, go figure. You know, we got a janitorial business. He likes to call it a house restoration business, and that was part of it. But I'm not a lazy person, but I don't like manual labor. I spent most of my young life, you guys hear my wife laughing, I don't like manual labor. I prefer brain labor. I prefer creating and thinking of things. And so while I have an incredibly good work ethic, and we were at times, and this is not an exaggeration, there were times when we had to work 72 straight hours no sleep because we had so many apartments or buildings to clean that had to be cleaned in the space of a few days. So I wanted an escape from this, and I knew I wanted to entertain, so what I would do is I'd be in the building cleaning toilets, or I would be vacuuming, and I would sing and practice singing. I would listen to my Walkman. Anybody remember Walkman? Cassette tapes. And I would, and I realized I could sing like the people that were doing it, but I didn't want to look weird. So because occasionally people would come to the building while I was cleaning, and I didn't want to look funny, so I'd be vacuuming and I'd be singing without moving my lips, so they didn't know I was singing. So, so this way I was able to practice what my future. I didn't realize I was going to be a singer ventriloquist. I was just practicing talking without moving my lips, but I did it through song. And that's how I really honed the craft that I use now at the Mirage.
And I recall that you would listen to all these different old-time shows.
I would, yes. Again, we would have to work 72 straight hours at times. And this happened several times. And what would happen is we had this apartment. We started out with an apartment restoration business. And what we would do is we'd go in, we would clean the carpets, we would trash it out. A lot of these places were just covered in filth. And we would have to trash it out, we'd have to clean the carpet, we'd have to clean the kitchen, we'd have to clean the floors, we'd have to strip and wax the floors, we'd clean the bathroom, make it ready to move in. Now, since there were four of us, there was myself, my sister, my brother, and my mom, we had so many apartments to do. They taught us how to do this, and they would stick, like me, in an apartment, and I had to do that whole thing. So I had to go from top to bottom, I had to trash it out, clean it, make it ready. And there was no, the one thing my father did do was inspect. So he would not work, but he would inspect it. And there was no room for error. Absolute perfection was expected at all times with my father. There was no room, when we were done, that apartment had to be as if it had just been built. And that was really important to them. And so what I would do is, overnight, this radio station would play old-time radio shows, and it was incredible because, we didn't have iPods and iPads where we could put movies on. And I was just so obsessed with entertainment, and I loved it. And they would play Charlie McCarthy, and they would play Jack Benny, and they would play Lum and Abner, and all these great old-time shows. And so from about midnight till about 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 straight hours, I'd be, cleaning, and I would be painting, and I would be listening to these. I think I got a lot of experience of what it must have been like back in the 30s before television, because I would paint these pictures in my mind of everything, and they kind of became my little friends. But I also learned how to write routines and how to write, using that. So that really became instrumental in my life. I hope I didn't go too long. Jeez,
Well, Taylor's coming up to
keep me
govern
from-
you
yeah.
on that. What I remember is that if you talk about at this point in your life, you're 15 or 16 years old, and you have no life beyond the family. Talk about what your father's rules were as far as.
Well, it was. My dad raised us in this, like I said, a very oppressive religious belief system. Now, we were taught, his name was Jephthah. He was named after the book of Judges, Jephthah, who sacrificed his daughter to God and ended up sending her to a temple because he had said, I will sacrifice whatever that I see first after some big good thing happened. And he told us that he had taken that namesake and had sacrificed all three of his children to God when we were born. Therefore, in his mind, he said we would never be allowed to have mates, we would never be allowed to be married, we would never be allowed to have a normal life. We were given to God, to him. That's what he told us. And then when I was about 8 or 9 or 10, he would always tell me, it doesn't matter that you're not going to be able to be married to her because you're not very good looking and you wouldn't be able to get a pretty wife anyway. So, and I just hope he's seen pictures of my wife. That's all I can say is wherever he is right now, I hope he's seen pictures of her.
Tell the Bambi story.
I was 15 and I went to see Bambi at our local theater in Corsicana. I was by myself, and when Bambi met the little doe that he would later become his, and they basically fell in love and they're prancing and on clouds or whatever, I absolutely broke down. I started weeping. I was sobbing. And I know the people around me must have been thinking, what in heaven's name? You got this 15-year-old boy, But what happened was I was filled with this absolute intense loneliness and need and desire to have a wife, a mate, someone. I was not allowed to date. I was not allowed to have girlfriends. I was never allowed. And the realization hit me that I will never experience that at 15. And this sense of intense loneliness, it just overwhelmed me at that point because I looked at it and I said, the idea of having someone that I can be with that'll be my soulmate, it just didn't exist in my world because if I ever did, I was going to end up burning in hell.
Well, with your father dictating almost every move, you must have associated with the puppets.
That's interesting because I didn't ever think about that until long afterwards, but I realized maybe one of the reasons I was attracted to ventriloquism was that I had absolutely no control of my world. I was the puppet, my father was the puppeteer, and maybe that was my way of psychologically, maybe that was my way of saying I have some control of something in my life.
Yeah.
So that I have a puppet and I make it talk and make it, everything it does comes from me.
Circle of friends, for that matter.
That's right. Right. Yes, without a doubt, yes.
At what point did your father make this dramatic change?
I was, my very early childhood it feels relatively normal. When I read my mother's book, I realized it wasn't normal because my father was always there was something always really off about him. But I never really felt it as a small child. But when I was about 7 or 8, we started getting foster children. My parents would foster kids that were in trouble and had difficulties. And immediately when that happened, my dad started waking us up at 5 in the morning, 4 and 5 in the morning, and forcing us to pray for 1 to 2 hours a day. Now I'm 8 years old. You try waking a kid, an 8-year-old, up at 5 in the morning and tell him to pray for an hour. Get on his knees and pray. He would beat us if we woke up. If we fell asleep to wake us up. So I'm trying to pray. I wanted to. I loved God. I did. I had this heart for God. I love God so much. But I'm 8. I'm an 8-year-old hyperactive kid, and trying to stay awake and trying to keep my mind on it, and it was difficult. And then, this is something I feel I can reveal because my mom talked about it in her book. We found out long later in my later life, that my father had been molesting these children. And my psychological analysis of this is that when he began to molest these children that they were fostering, he wanted to make up for it to God and to get forgiveness. And by doing that, he began to hammer down this iron fist of religious. There were times he was so irrational. There were times when he would take everything out of the house, radios, televisions, throw them in the garbage. And then other times he would purge the house of anything that did not have God on it. He would, if there was if we had a sign up that didn't have God in it, he would take it, tear it down, and then go and buy something that had the word God or something to do with God. And I realize now, I think he was trying to overcompensate. But it happened several times, and later on, once this all came out, and the way it came out was he started getting letters from these kids. And what he would do is he would threaten them, tell them that he was a man of God, and that if they ever told anyone, they would burn in hell. And it would terrify them. And they confronted him, and I saw one of these letters, and I confronted him, and he said, well, they were already molested anyway, so I didn't do any harm. And I just wow. It just blew my mind. I could not believe, again, this was long after, but I didn't know. But that's my assessment, is when the real harsh religious stuff started happening was right around that time.
Several extreme things happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was like I said, my father had said we were never going to be allowed to have children or get married or have families. We were dedicated to God. And my brother, when he was 18, went to college in Montana and fell in love with a young lady who, by the way, is his wife of 30-something years. They're still married. He came back from college for Christmas. And I don't remember how it happened, but somehow my dad found out that he had fallen in love. And my dad, we lived in the country in Corsicana, and we had several guns. He grabbed a gun and threatened to kill all of us. And he said, I would rather every one of you be dead than not serve God. And in his mind, serving God was obeying him to the letter. We were able to wrestle the gun away from him. I've never been more terrified, but this instilled a terror of this man in me, a terror of not only does he have my soul in his hands, but he has my life in his hands. If I go against him, he will kill me, and I'll burn in hell. So, you cannot imagine the type of terror a person, I was being held hostage spiritually by this man. And it scared all of us. But I took all of the guns. I grabbed every gun in the house and I ran. My brother wrestled my dad to the ground. And I ran into a field and I just sat there and cried and shook. And I don't remember how. That's all I remember. I don't remember how it all resolved. But somehow or another we ended up back under his thumb.
And years later, he asked you. He asked you to.
If I would kill myself? Oh,
kill him, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, you're right. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, off on the term that would have thrown you off.
No, I got you. No, yes. Years later, he decided, and it happened when all these people that he had molested started writing letters to him and confronting him about it. He decided he wanted to die. And that he was a holy enough man to where he would go to heaven anyway, he said. And he told me to help kill him. And I said, hell no, I'm not going to prison for you. So I wouldn't do it. And so he ended up overdosing on pills and alcohol, and he just threw it all up and ended up getting a hangover for 2 or 3 days. And that really was kind of the final straw. It was the very last of the time he had any kind of influence or control over me at all.
When did you know, at what age were you, and when did you know that you were in a cult?
I think the word cult is very appropriate, and it was a cult. I didn't know this, but my father, as he took more and more control of the family and myself, he began to have these messianic ideas of himself. Again, I told you he's incredibly narcissistic. Any cult leader is narcissistic. He began to say that he was the one true way, that he had a special revelation from God. And we were taught never to question anything he said. And before we really start talking about the cult, do you mind if I bring Taylor up? Taylor is my wife. Taylor... Ziggy's my emotional service dog.
Hi, David.
Thanks for joining us,
He looks
David.
like he just wants to sleep. He does, okay. So, Anyway, I want Taylor here because, well, let me tell you, Taylor and I had been dating like 6 months when I told her I was in a cult.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was kind of a shock.
I did it on the way to Disneyland. And I'll tell you, the time to tell someone you're in a cult is on the way out of Disneyland.
Future wrestler.
Just in case any of you are in a cult and you're going to tell someone, do it on the way out of Disneyland, not on the, but it was quite a shock to her. And the reason why I want her to be up here with me is because, you know, I spent many years in this cult, decades. And when I got out of it, I was emotionally destroyed. I was psychologically a complete basket case. I was never allowed to grow up. I was never allowed to be a man. I was always a little boy. Everything in my life had been dictated to me from the time I was a very young child. And I was never allowed to make any kind of decision on my own. And the very first decision I ever made, and we'll talk in a moment about, I was married before to a woman, and we'll talk about that, but the very first decision that I ever made on my own, that I did, nobody behind the scenes telling me anything, pushing me, telling me, was ask Taylor on a date.
And he's still paying for it.
And it was the best decision I ever made in my life. But it was interesting because people don't understand. And the funniest part about this whole thing, well, it's funny to me, maybe to you too, but the funniest thing about it is that if you, when everything happened for me in America's Got Talent, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but when everything happened to me, I told myself, I said, I'm not going to do what Hollywood people do. I'm not going to fire everybody, and I'm not going to, blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna, within 2 years, I had done everything. I was divorced. I was married to a young model. I had completely let go of my entire staff. And what it taught me was that you can't judge anyone when you don't have the information, because not one.
If you do, because even now, knowing that he's been in a cult, his ex-wife, for example, I will never try to understand how someone in their 20s can choose to marry into a cult, because I wasn't in that position. So even knowing what I know, I still don't think it's fair to judge. In him being raised in a cult and having to pull himself away from it, even just having the strength to do that is admirable. It's incredible that he had the strength to do that. But from there, I was left to pick up the pieces.
Yes. And interestingly, I was emotionally, I was in my 40s, but emotionally, I was a child. I was a lost child. And like I said, every single decision that had been made for me in my life had been made by other people. When I started a band called Texas the Band, and with Texas the Band, I know I'm jumping ahead, but I started this band, and the purpose of the band was to bring money in for the cult, because at the time I didn't know it was a cult. I didn't realize this. When you're in a cult, you don't know it. You just think you're
Special, and you found the right way.
Yeah, and you found revelation from God that's different, that makes you special, But so we were doing the house restoration business and janitorial business, and I basically said, hey, Dad, instead of doing this, why don't I start a band, because I can sing and I can do all these other things. And he loved the idea.
Except for play instruments.
I can't play instruments. Yes, I cannot play instruments.
That's amazing.
But I had other people that would play the instruments for me. So I hired, and I found these guys who kind of came in and assimilated into the religious atmosphere that we had.
I just have to interrupt. The way that the cult started, it's really interesting, because although he had the control from the time that Terry was young, it all started out because, for good reasons, believe it or not, they wanted to take a year to study the Bible. So that's how he got Jeff to come back, quit college.
Well, he trapped us, and Jeff, my brother and I were talking about this the other day, and he trapped us. Here's what he told us. Now, what would you do in this situation? We're young. I'm 17. My brother is 18. I can't wait to get out and go to college. My dad says this. He says, I'm going to ask you to do something for me. I'm going to ask you if you will give 1 year of your life to studying the Bible and getting to know God better. Now, this is coming from a person who loves God, and I still do love God. I did not abandon I became an atheist for about 10 minutes. But I realized I didn't like being alone. So anyway, so he says, give 1 year of your life to studying the Bible, and if God is not worth it, then you can go off and go to college and do whatever you want with your life. Now, what a twisted thing to say, because that, basically by saying that, he was trapping us forever. Because who's going to say God's not worth giving your life to? Nah, see? And as children, we had been raised with this man who had saw us slipping away because my brother had already gone to college and fallen in love. So he saw that but he trapped us by saying, and I said, sure, I'll study the Bible for a year, and then if God is not worth it, well, of course you're going to think God is worth it if you love God, which I do. So what happened was we slipped into, we studied the Bible, and we worked and studied and then my dad, slowly over a period of years, began to come up with these revelations where he would take a certain scripture and apply it to himself that really wasn't about him, it was about someone else. And then by the end of it, he was the Messiah, he was Moses, he was Jesus Christ on earth. And by this time, just like the frog boiling in the water, I don't know if you know the story, but if you take a frog and put him in boiling water, he's going to hop out. But if you take a frog and put him in lukewarm water and boil him, he'll boil to death. Because he doesn't realize around him it's getting hotter and hotter. That's exactly what happened. And once you look at it from the outside in, you go, holy crap, what was I thinking? Oh my God. But when you're there, it's just happening little by little by little. And you're just descending into this pit of hopelessness and helplessness.
April 1993. Remember the day?
I do, yes.
Koresh.
David Koresh.
Yes.
40 miles east of us when it happened. A lot of that, when something like that happens and you're in a cult, and you look at something big that's happening with another cult, the little things inside are saying, are we the same? Now, two things about that. One, my father was very careful to keep control of what we watched and what we saw. So we didn't see tons of stuff about it. We saw very, very little because we weren't. I was telling my manager this morning that we missed the destruction of the Berlin Wall because we weren't allowed to watch TV or anything. I found out about it later after I got out of the cult, and I was like, "What? They destroyed the Berlin Wall? You're kidding!" Because my dad had such control of everything we watched. So basically, would be fed these little tidbits of news about David Koresh. And then my father would explain to us why we were not like that.
You had meetings, about a meeting.
Oh yes, meetings, yes. And a lot of it was about not getting into trouble. One of the things that I learned to do was I learned to live in a world of pretend. Because when you're living in a life, and I don't know if anybody else here understands this, but when you're living a life of a hellish existence, sometimes, especially if you're a creative person like myself, I play with puppets for a living. I make people think puppets are talking. You learn to live in a fantasy world of your own making. So therefore, I was able to look back and recreate my childhood into an idyllic childhood. When my first wife came along, she became very. She loved Texas the Band, which was the band that we'd started. She was a big follower of the band, and my dad got to know her, and something sparked in him, and he just really liked her, and he tells me, he says, "You can marry her." And man, I jumped at it. I can get married? You're kidding me. Oh my gosh, I'm 26 years old now. I'm gonna be able to get married? Yes, let's do it. Let's do it tonight. I was so excited because I realized I'm not gonna have to be alone the rest of my life. And interestingly enough, for almost every bit of our marriage, I was gone. I was on the road. 10 to 11 months a year, I was gone.
100,000 miles in your car.
100,000 miles a year on my car. And it was, so we barely knew each other. And interestingly, I found out, and again, when you're in these things, you don't understand what you're in. You don't know what your life is like. It's just your life, A child who's raised in an abusive home, they think that's life. They don't understand it. Exactly, that's their normal.
Yeah.
So I didn't even realize this until after, and it was something actually Taylor pointed out to me. Every single time when we started dating, every single time we got into a fight or things started getting difficult, I got drunk. Every single time. I didn't know this now. And then I started looking back and I realized I spent 11 months on the road and 1 month drunk. and it's true. I started drinking on the plane ride home. I felt like a pilot.
Sorry.
No, I did though. I started drinking. I started ordering the martinis and the Bloody Marys, and on the way home. And the entire time I spent home, I had something. I had a drink in my hand, and I didn't even know this. I didn't realize this. I never drank on the road. Never. I didn't. It just wasn't a thought. But I spent all of my time at home with a drink in my hand. And then Taylor pointed out to me. She said, "Do you realize every time we have a fight, you get drunk?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, you're right." And I have not done that since. I stopped. I mean, I drink occasionally. I'll have a beer, but not when I'm angry. And I don't use that as my way of self-medicating. It was something that I learned, and but it was just, it was my normal. And so what I would do is I had created this whole fantasy world in my life. I had created this idyllic marriage, and instead of being, my dad told me I could marry, it was, it's so wonderful. And another thing, and I'm going to give everybody some advice. If you think you can solve problems in a marriage by writing a book about how great your marriage is, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I tried it, but, I kept thinking that, we had this, my first wife and I there was not a relationship. There was no relationship. We wanted...
I mean, there's a lot more to trying to understand why someone would marry into a cult and what the dynamic was. But that's private. That's her
Yes,
thing. We're not
yes.
even trying
Well, I'm not
to
trying, but...
that'll embarrass her.
But what I want to say is that there was almost no relationship. When we set up the deal with the Mirage, we had to make sure that I had a place at the Mirage, because I had spent so much time on the road that we knew that it was not going to work if I was home all the time. We just did not. It just wasn't right. There was something, and I was trying, and I kept thinking, you know what? I know what's going to fix this. If I get rich and famous, everything's going to be great. She's going to be happy. I'm going to be happy. We're all going to be happy. And I got rich and famous, and it didn't work. Didn't fix it. And I guess the mistake was everybody looks and says, "Oh, we got rich and famous, and got divorced." Well, the divorce was happening long before. We were the marriage.
One city.
Exactly. As long as I was on the road 11 months, we could have kept it going for another 60 years. But as soon as we realized we're going to be in the same house all the time forever, this isn't going to work, So at that point, and a lot of people don't even know that she's the one who filed for divorce, but I got to be honest, it could have been me too. I mean, we knew this thing is not going to work. We knew it. And at this point, I'm alone. I am alone. I'm terrified. First of all, I'm in Las Vegas. I'm by myself. Where the heck am I going to find a woman who is not after me for money? Tell me that. In Las Vegas.
I found brother.
Good for you. So we're the only two. No, I'm sure there are good women here, but so I guess now we should talk about.
She came from Nebraska.
From Nebraska, well, mine's from Hawaii. So, but
one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, you had a history of fractured relationships because you moved how many times? Like 3 times in 1 year?
Oh yeah. No, we moved all the time. I have no understanding of what it's like to have any kind of roots at all. Growing up, I think I went to 17 or 18 schools from the time I was in first grade to the time I graduated. So at times we went to 2 and 3 schools a year. So I had no understanding of what it was to form relationships. I had no friends from when I was young, because I would become friends with somebody, and 3 months in, we'd move, And this was just my crazy dad doing nutty things, I'm not sure what the dynamics of all that was, but I know we never were able to stay in one church, because as soon as the pastor disagreed with something my father said, we immediately got ripped out of that church and went to another church. So it was which is probably why he started his own church, because then no one would ever dare go against what he had to say. But here I was, this emotional, psychological wreck. I had left the cult years before. My marriage had just ended. I knew this. It was over. She knew it was over. We were both trying to move on. And I'm stuck in Vegas, and I've never felt more alone in my entire life. My family came in to help kind of work me through some of this. And it was at this time...
Well, that's interesting, too. His family had been contacting him for many years. And that was one of the reasons the divorce happened, because he finally decided, now that I'm in one place, I want to reconnect with my family.
Yeah, my ex-wife didn't want anything to do with my family at all. So I had not spent a Christmas with my family, I think, in 15 years. So
So when he signed the contract with Mirage, he brought
I
them to
said,
Vegas, they
yeah.
had Christmas together.
I said, I'm going to start spending time with my family, you know, and that was a big contention as well. But, so that's a good point. But here I am alone. I'm terrified. I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, I don't want to be alone. I thought I was going to end up never being able to have a wife my whole life, and now I'm alone again. And Taylor was, I had hired her. And let me say this. I never even fantasized about Taylor. Never. I mean, she is so far out of my. She is so far out of my. No, I'm being honest. She was in my show. She was beautiful, and I'm like, she is so far out of my league. I'm not even gonna think about her.
He's always giving way too much information. This is nothing new.
But the point is, there wasn't even in my brain. There was not even a shot. Okay, I'm old. She's young. There's no way this is gonna work out at all. So I wasn't even thinking, and ever. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm sure that's just the beginning.
Well, she's gorgeous, and you know, so in my mind, that's not even something to consider. And my sister had started coming in. She actually went on some road shows with us, and Taylor was the only female on our road shows that I was doing from Vegas.
This is before this is after you won.
After I won America's Got Talent. We can talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
We'll talk about
Sure,
Taylor.
sure.
I like talking about Taylor.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so anyway, so my sister became very good friends with her because my sister would travel with us sometimes, and as the only female, they would get together and talk.
And eat Oreos.
And eat Oreos, yes, which Taylor still likes doing. But so my sister starts talking to Taylor, and then she started coming to me, and of course at this time, I'm single. My first wife had moved to Texas, filed for
Just
divorce.
interrupt. It's really odd because so many people look at us, and we completely understand. We understand when people say this. But they say, oh, there's such a huge age difference. They could have absolutely nothing in common. Well, first of all, that's something we have in common. But I grew up entertaining from the time that I was about 6 years old, same with him. I had a dad that was not too much different than his dad. And I grew
Incredibly.
up... Yeah.
I mean, the similarities are uncanny.
I grew up cleaning yards. He grew up cleaning houses. Politically, spiritually, everything. We had everything in common. We still have so much in common, and we live in the present. So if you look at us and you say, what could they possibly talk about? Besides our past, we have now to talk about. We live together in the now.
Okay, that's beautiful. I like that. Well, so here we go. I'm alone with my sister, and my sister starts bending my ear. She says, I think Taylor would go out with you. And I said, yeah, right. And she goes, no.
This is before she started working on me too.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so she says, no, I really do. She's really not interested. You know, first of all, she had never dated a guy with any kind of money at all. That
Or
was
a
not
white guy.
Or a white guy. Yeah, she'd never dated a white guy. She liked Polynesians and
Or anything
Somalians
else.
or anything but white. So anyway, so my sister's like, you know, I don't think she cares about the age difference. And I'm like, are you serious? And she's like, no, seriously, I really do. And then she starts talking to Taylor and says, you know, that Terry's in the process of a divorce, and so just one night, I was bringing her home from a show, and man, my palms are sweating, and I'm thinking, oh God, I'm going to humiliate myself. I know it. And I'm like, would you go out with me? And she said, yes. And I celebrated that night. No alcohol. I could not believe it. And it was interesting because I got home and I was in this, how big was that condo we had at Turnberry? It was a penthouse. It was stupid. It was ridiculous. I mean, it's not me. I'm a guy that wants a bud and a beer. I don't want, a bud and a beer, a bud and a burger. But that's me. I'm not highfalutin fancy, but we had this penthouse at Turnberry, and I went there. It was by myself, and I started shouting for joy, and I could hear the echoes in this thing, and I'm just going, I don't believe this. She said yes, but the thing that was so amazing about it wasn't just that the most beautiful woman on the planet had just said yes to me. It was the understanding and the realization I had just done something all by myself. All by myself. There was nobody back there. I mean, my sister was telling me that she thought she would go out with me, but she wasn't pushing me. She wasn't pushing me, but it was just, she was just saying, I think she would go out with you. That's what she was telling me. And she basically gave me that strength to say, would you, And so we started dating, and I had the worst advice in the history of advice. The people that were surrounding me, but again, this was the stupidity of me being raised by somebody and never questioning anything. But the people that were surrounding me and giving me advice told me that I needed to hide the fact that I was getting a divorce, because my fans would not accept that, because I was a family. And he told me I would lose the Mirage contract. I would lose everything if it came out I was getting divorced.
Everything he had ever worked for in his entire
I was
life.
scared poopless, scared out of my mind, that I was going to lose everything. So I hid it. So for several months, nobody knew I was getting divorced.
His ex-wife had moved to Texas and filed for divorce, but she would fly in, and I did not know this. I had the choice to choose between dating Terry and quitting my job. So, of course, I had to quit my job. They sent me to Hawaii, so I wouldn't know this. I call it
This was all my advisors.
exile. And he and his ex-wife were going around town being seen together so people wouldn't know.
Pretending
So
we
he
were still
wouldn't
married.
lose the
The
contract.
stupidest, what in the heck was wrong with me? What is wrong with me? But so finally I said, look,
But
this
that's
is,
part of the
we
growing
can't,
process.
yes.
It's just something he had to go through. We all had to
So
go
the
through
problem
this.
is that Taylor and I were seeing each other, but we were trying to sneak, but Las Vegas is a small town. People know, they saw us together.
Damn,
So what happens? So what happens? Terry's having an affair. He's married, but he's dating. So it's like we were fully separated before I even asked Taylor on a date, but nobody knew this. So here we are in Las Vegas in this small town, and everybody's going, Terry. And here's the thing, you gotta realize, I can't believe any of you people are even here.
I know.
For me, I can't believe this. Seriously. So honestly, I did not realize. I've never experienced anything like this. I mean, I was in my 40s when I went on America's Got Talent. So when Taylor and I went on our first date publicly, it made the freaking front page of the news. I couldn't believe it. It was the lead story on the news. I turned the TV on. It's like Terry Fator's dating his assistant. I'm like, what?
And you asked some questions. I don't even remember what you asked, but I said, honestly, I'm just surprised that anyone cares. And to this day, people are still talking about us, and we cannot believe that people care. But we love you, and we're glad you're here.
You're a great couple, for one thing. A great couple.
Thank you.
One of the stories that I dearly love is the Logandale.
Okay.
And put this in perspective of where America's Got Talent was. And
Now, in 2006, October, I went in and I auditioned for America's Got Talent. I was so excited. I thought, sure, I got it. I was positive I got it. Because I went in there, you're only supposed to get 5 minutes. And I had brought all my puppets, and I brought a little iPod and a little speakers, and I was doing my impressions. They let me do 15 minutes, and they kept saying, do more. And then one of them said, it's impossible. There's no way you're doing that. It's not possible. It's on tape. They did. They said this. And I said, what do you want me to do? They said, come right here 6 inches from our face and do it. And I went 6 inches from their face and went, Ziggy's all excited, and they literally they were just dumbfounded. So they said go do some post-show interviews. And I walked in and I said, they told me to come do interviews, and the guy said, well, congratulations, you're either really bad or you're really good. And I said, well, I know I'm not really bad. And he goes, well, congratulations. So I was positive I made it on the show. It just went so well. And then I never heard from him. They told me I'd hear by Christmas. Nothing, not a word. And so I'm getting more and more depressed. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna do this all on my own. I don't need America's Got Talent. So I came to Vegas, and at the time I had another manager, and he set it up. So I don't know the names of the producers, but he set up 3 of the top producers in town. One of them who had produced Danny Gans. Wait a minute, we gotta tell Logandale before we tell this. Yeah. So Logandale. So anyway, this is in 2005, before the America's Got Talent. I was playing the Logandale Fair. Anybody been there? To the Logandale? Yeah. Okay. I was playing it, and I had saved, and I said, I've got to go see this Danny Gans guy. I got to, because everybody's talking about him. He's an impressionist. I do impressions. I go and I'm sitting there, I'm watching the show, and I am in heaven. Every single time he goes into an impression, the audience bursts into applause, and I think, I can do that. Every single time. And I said, not only can I do it, I can do it without moving my lips.
In the most humble way.
Yes. So I'm thinking, I'm going to be a Vegas headliner. I know I can. I'm going to do this. So I went back and I started thinking, okay, I got to get some more impressions in, and obviously I want puppets to do it because I'm a ventriloquist. So my manager and I were driving to Butte, and Friends in Low Places came on, and I came on the radio, and I'm sitting there and I'm singing along, and I'm going, "Lay it on my roots, I showed up in boots, and ruined your black tie affair." And he's looking at me and he goes, "Oh my gosh, you can sing that without moving your lips?" And I said, "Yeah, actually I can." And I'm thinking in this next show, because the next night we had a show in Butte, it was a private party. I said, "I'm going to have Maynard, my character, sing Friends in Low Places." And he said, that's really cool. And I did it.
You worked all night?
I worked all night on it, and then I did it that next night, and people went nuts. Afterwards, they said, "Oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen." And I said, "I'm onto something here. This is it, you know." So I went home. I spent about 6 months, and I was working, and I was teaching. What I decided I was going to do is I was going to be a talk show host, and all of my characters were going to be my guests, and they were all going to be impressionists. And so I would call a puppet and have them do an impression. And man, things really started to change. People started taking notice. But that's when I went and did the America's Got Talent thing, where I was doing the impressions. Set up this producer shows with these 3 producers. I was so excited. It was a private party. It was at the Rio. I was, and afterwards I'm covered in sweat. I'm just so excited. I'm thinking, man, I knocked it out of the park. They're gonna love this. And I sat down and I go, "What did you think?" And all 3 of them said, "You are not gonna play Vegas. You're just not. You just don't have it. It's just not gonna happen. You are not Vegas material. Vegas will never accept what you do." And I was crushed. I was just like, oh my gosh, all of these dreams. I've been dreaming of Vegas since I was a kid, and it's just not gonna happen. And I said, and then about a week later, I got a call from America's Got Talent that I was on the show. And so I went from down here to up here, and in my mind, I was never going to win it, because there's no way in my mind a ventriloquist is going to win America's Got Talent. Not going to happen. And I mean, no one could convince me that I was going to win it. I just figured I'd get on a couple episodes, and maybe, it'd be easier for me to book schools, and I might be able to play a cruise ship. That'd be cool. Because no cruise ships would book me. And this is a cool story. I don't think I didn't tell you guys this, but so cruise ships would not book me. I sent them, no, I got roundly no way, and they said, plus you don't want it because we don't pay much, and so right after America's Got Talent, Disney Cruises called me, and they said, and I said, well, I don't have time. I mean, I was so booked, and I said, tell them that I want the biggest suite they have, and I want $25,000 to see what they say. And they said yes, and I said, well, tell them I can't do it.
I've got to show a little flash of my Montana pride here, and Terry was first on my map when, of course, he came here. But when I realized that something was happening out in the far beyond Las Vegas, was when a niece from Montana asked me if I knew Terry Fator, and I said, yeah, I do. We talked to him, interviewed him, love his show. She goes, did you know that he came to Weibo? I said, no. Well, here's what Terry did. He won America's Got Talent, won the $1 million, and I'm going to let him tell it. He tells a great story about it.
Yeah, again, I never expected to win it, but here I was, I won the thing. And all the way up till they said my name, I was convinced it was going to be that other guy. And who was her name? I'm just kidding. He's fine. Cass Haley, great guy. I loved him. I thought he was going to win it. So I had contracted all these other contracts, and they were really low paying. I mean, one of them was like $250, another was $750, and all of a sudden I'm getting, like I said, Disney said they would pay me $25,000 to play a cruise ship. So, I mean, everything is nuts. And I told every single fair, every single venue that I had done, I said, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to charge you 1 penny more, not 1 penny more. Because I'm going to live by all of these contracts. I said, the only thing is, I don't want any afternoon shows because I had a heat stroke twice standing in the sun. And I said, and instead of doing 3 to 5 shows, I want to do 1 show in the evening. So I'll do the full hour and a half, but 1 show in the evening. And every single one of them agreed.
All these little towns and
Every one of them. And I gotta say, most of them told me they broke attendance records.
Yeah.
So it showed the power of America's Got Talent. I never dreamed that it would happen like it did. I mean, my gosh, it was just, you know, my head is still spinning.
One more story about how fast it happened. Wasn't there a story about you playing at a Texas football field? Rainstorm?
Yes. There was a huge rainstorm. Rained the whole place out. It was in Odessa, Texas. The Permian Basin Fair. I had been booked before. It was one of those really low-paying shows. And they told me, they said, listen, we're having a flood. People can't even get through. My car got stuck in the water. And they said, you know, don't expect much. They broke attendance records. We sold out an arena at the fair just for my show, and it was just, I could not believe the power of this one show. It just was nuts. And I still have people tell me that they voted, you know, that they voted for me on that show.
Sure. Well, one of the things I know that means a lot to you is that you went on Oprah, and something happened on Oprah totally unexpected.
Yeah, that was cool.
This is in Chicago then, right? You're in
Chicago was right. It was about a year after America's Got Talent, maybe, and Oprah had me on her show. And the premise of the show was Simon Cowell was going to be on Oprah, and he was going to name the top 2 entertainers in the world according to him. And I was one, and Leona Lewis was the other. And so Simon Cowell told Oprah I was one of the top 2 best entertainers in the world. And after I did the show, I was walking around Chicago, and I'm just sitting and looking at all the buildings, and I'm going, you know what? My dad told me from the time I was a little kid I wasn't talented. He told me that I was a fraud, I was a fake. He used to tell me that my talent was a house of cards, and that once people realized I wasn't really talented, everything was going to fall apart. And I was terrified. I had this terror inside that people were going to figure out that I wasn't really very talented, you know. And and all of a sudden, it's like this thing inside said, if Simon Cowell says you're one of the top 2 talents in the world, I don't think my dad's opinion matters about that. So we really was able to let something go.
For all the sports fans that are missing the March Madness today, Terry's got a story here that I dearly love. When Texas the Band was playing, you were in this little bar in Dallas, or the outskirts of Dallas. Tell about some guy walked in and sat there. And
1989, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we were playing Borrowed Money in Dallas. It was a bar, and we had just started our band, and we were making a little money, and Troy Aikman was sitting by himself, nobody around him. It was the last day of his first season. He had gone 1-15.
0-11 as a starter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we had gone 1-15 that year. And he was very depressed, and he was very drunk. I don't think he remembers us, but it was very funny because it was like, and then like 2 or 3 years later, we won the Super Bowl, and he was the huge, gigantic superstar. But yeah, I remember that night when Troy Aikman was sitting there watching Texas the Band. We tried to impress him. We thought, yeah, I'm sure he cared. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he didn't.
Well, I understand that you've got another guest that you're going to introduce to us.
You do?
Can I leave?
Well, I guess the one thing that you said in your column that we wanted to set the record straight. The record really is that Taylor and I did not cheat on my marriage. It was over, and my ex-wife was in Texas. Not only she filed twice just for good measure. She filed in Texas and in Nevada, just to make sure. So I mean, this marriage was over, and it was over. Let me say this: it was over long before America's Got Talent. We knew this. We tried to fix it. I really thought getting rich and famous would fix it. So that was really what we wanted people to know, was that this wasn't. Taylor is not a home wrecker. People are always saying home wrecker. The home was wrecked.
He was so naive. I remember when we first started dating, he said, "Oh, in 10 years when we have 3 kids, people will say they must really love each other." But I don't know. People are going to think what they want to think.
Yeah.
So.
But let me say this: Taylor, and without getting into details, we are going to write a book, or I'm writing a book.
But
about
again,
it.
even in the book, we're not going to get into
No, we're not going to get into details, but let me say this. Taylor saved my life. She did. She saved me because I was psychologically destroyed. And this poor thing put me back together. And I'll say, okay, you want to talk stupid? I broke up with her like 10 times. I broke up with her. Does that say anything about me? I mean, come on. And I had to come crawling back to her and beg her to take me back because I knew, something inside me told me I knew that she was the key for me to becoming the man I always wanted to be.
The thing is, he was in denial. He and another family member were in denial, and they just kept reinforcing negative behaviors and thoughts. They wouldn't allow each other to grow because they kept telling themselves, we're so lucky that we made it out of that situation healthy. And that's the first thing you can do wrong. You have to look at yourself and you have to reflect on your experiences.
So we'll go into more detail in the book of
Yeah.
how she took, my mind was a puzzle, it was a jigsaw puzzle that had been shattered into 10,000 pieces and they were scattered everywhere. And Taylor meticulously, the maturity that she has at her age is unbelievable.
I'll say that about you too one day.
She's right. But she meticulously and through a painful process for herself took those pieces and slowly put them together and made me into the man I always wanted to be. And that's a fact.
That's fantastic.
And we'll go into detail. I'll go into detail in the book about these things, and there's some amazing stuff, because she's wise beyond her years. She robbed the cradle because I'm still 8 years old psychologically. I still like to play my video games. Okay, so yes, we do have someone else who wants to make an appearance.
Yes. Speaking of video.
Yes, we can bring the little video thing down because I think he might want to show a couple of these. So let's just see if I can't get him. Here we go. So this is Winston, the impersonating Winston. Why are you wearing an eye patch?
It's my impression of Norm.
Yeah.
Also, Sammy Davis Jr.
Who can take the sunrise?
Okay, that's enough. So anyway, we appreciate it. Let's take this off. Okay.
Yeah.
That was a nice joke. Yeah. It won't come off. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hope this doesn't get R-rated.
Don't quit your day job.
Well, Winston, I understand that you've already had one movie, and I love you in Muppets Most Wanted.
Wait, what?
You were in Muppets Most Wanted?
No. Oh my gosh, you're kidding. That was Kermit the Frog.
Well, oh my gosh.
What, do all puppets look alike to you? I don't get this. I mean, I'm not Kermit. What are you, half white? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Winston. Do you have any film projects lined up?
Oh, absolutely. Do you want to see my latest trailer?
Yeah, show us a trailer real quick.
Coming to theaters this summer, it's Gravity 2, starring Winston the impersonating turtle. In space, no one can hear a turtle scream, especially with dear Fator still back on Earth. Guidance suggested.
I'm thinking Oscar, the Grouch.
That's very funny.
I heard you had some trouble with the ladies, according to my spies.
Yes, I do. I have had trouble with the ladies. Do we want to show the clip?
Yeah, let's show the clip. I know it's embarrassing. But
This is the Morning Blend Entertainment team with a breaking news report.
I'm Sean Tempesta.
And I'm Dal Vu. Here's what we know so far.
It's a big one. After just 3 days, Hollywood superstar Winston the impersonating turtle has dumped his girlfriend, Taylor Swift.
No word on Winston's whereabouts, and Ms. Swift is already in the studio recording her new song about him.
I'm a little ashamed.
So how did Terry handle it when you announced you were going to Hollywood?
Oh, he was speechless.
yeah, I was speechless.
Yeah, kind of like when I asked him for a raise. Cheap bastard.
Well, we all know you won America's Got Talent with Terry. Are there any other reality shows you plan?
Oh yes, there's some reality shows that I'm planning on being on. Which ones? America's Got Turtles. Turtles and Tiaras.
Any others?
Yeah, Desperate House Pets.
Any others?
Yeah, I Can't Keep Up with the Kardashians.
Those are all the ones you're working on?
Yeah, I'll think of others.
Okay.
How do you feel about the theater being named after Terry?
Oh, it's fine. No, I don't have a problem. Me and Terry, we got this deal worked out. He gets the theater laid out to him, and I get the checks laid out to me.
Is there any movie scene that you won't do, Winston?
Yes, I have a clause in my contract. I will not do topless. Sorry, ladies. The shell is not coming off. Terry will do topless.
No, it won't.
You don't want Terry to do topless.
Well, this might be a really good time to wrap up this part of it before the Smith Center loses its entertainment license. Let's bring Sean back up on stage here.
Wow. Round of applause. How cool is that? Next question. What's your name?
Janice. Hi. Thanks so much for being here today. This is very stimulating.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. My question is, you were talking a lot about a cult, and I couldn't figure out if a family is a cult, but then you mentioned later on that your dad had started a church. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, it was never an official church, you know, we never got, I mean, my dad did get ordained. He went, I don't even remember how he did this, but he got ordained and became an actual licensed minister, which is very easy to do, I believe. I think if you've got the money, you can become ordained. But the reason it became a cult was not so much that it started out as just kind of a little religious group, but my father actually became messianic and egomaniacal and had completely taken over. And I think when everyone came in, it was, you know, the different people had come in, like the band members and stuff. We were all just there for a Bible study and stuff, and then it devolved into this cult where my father had absolute, total authoritarian power of everyone. Of the thoughts and everything. So and when I say cult, it's not officially register ourselves as a cult, but I only say it was a cult now, coming out of it. Now that I look back on it, I go, holy crap! You know, we were just like Koresh, we were just like Jim Jones. You know, we were just, and I'm still to this day very fascinated by cults. Very fascinated. Anytime I see something on television, because it is absolutely amazing to me that I will listen to people like Jim Jones talk. I'll listen to David Koresh talk. I'll listen to the big cult leaders that we know. And they use the same terminology. My dad didn't study cults. How he figured it out, I don't know. I almost, you know, I believe in God. I believe in demonic forces. I almost believe there's almost a demonic type of influence there, where they kind of come in and they tell them what to say and what to believe. And because, you know, it all starts with narcissism. You know, any cult leader is going to be narcissistic, which my dad was and is, and then it just evolves into this absolute authoritarian control over people's souls and their lives. And so, I hope that answers your question.
Next question. What's your name, sir? Bob, what's your question?
My question, sir, is is the rumor true that you turned down the president to perform at the White House?
Yes. I did. I'm not, you know, I would, if I was to be asked, which I won't be, by the way, since I turned it down, but if somebody asked me to just perform for the president, it's fine, but it was for a fundraiser for a political person that I was not supporting. And I said, no, I refuse. I will not play a fundraiser for someone I don't support. So I just
That was a heavy one. I like that. It was good. Next question.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I'm a speech language pathologist, and I'm fascinated by what you do and how you do it. But I want to know, how do you take care of your voice?
Oh, good question. I will say, and I don't, Taylor hates when I say this because it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm not. Please don't take it this way. My voice doctor, who has been my voice doctor for almost 30 years, he has told me several times that what I do, in every sense, should be physically impossible. He cannot figure it out. I can't figure it out. I don't know why. But you should not be able to make the tones that I make with this much space in your lips, with your lips. I break every rule of singing. It's just, all I can say is it's a gift. I'm grateful I have this gift. I hope I'm utilizing it to the best of my ability, and that God's proud of how I've used my gift. But I can't take credit for that because it's not something that I did that makes me, oh, I'm better. It's just, I was born with it, But the way I keep my voice healthy here in Vegas is, and then my doctor told me this, humidity. Our house is set at 60% humidity at all times. I have commercial grade humidifiers in every room of our house. So you can go, it's like walking into a swamp. But it's amazing. It's great for your skin, right, baby?
I love it.
She loves it. It's good for skin and hair, and so. But yeah, it is humidity. That's what it's all about.
Excellent. We have another question over here. And let me see those hands if you want to have a question. I'll walk over in just a minute. What's your name, sir?
Michael Schaefer. I wanted to ask you, did you start your work in Las Vegas at the Terry Fator Theater Mirage? I sort of recall you somewhere before that. And secondly, did you ever meet a ventriloquist? He's a 90-year-old guy, Jimmy Weldon, who did Webster the Duck. And did you know Kevin Clash? He was very talented.
No, I don't know either of those. I started my career in Vegas at the Excalibur. You know this.
Yeah.
Texas the Band, my band played here in, I don't know, sometime in the mid-90s, I guess. And we were the house band at a steakhouse. And they had their people telling me to stop doing the ventriloquism because it was distracting to the eaters. So I was miserable. I hated it because that was such a big part of what I did, and we were, had to play very slow country music for the whole time. So it was the worst 6 weeks of my life. Then we played at the Texas Gambling Hall and Hotel for about a month. We were the house band there for a little while. And then the first time I played Vegas after that as a headliner, this was just, we were just bands doing, house band type things, was at the Hilton, which I booked in the middle of America's Got Talent. The Hilton booked me as their headliner, hoping. It sold out in 2 hours, and with no advertising, just from being on America's Got Talent. It blew, they couldn't believe it. So they booked me again, and it sold out in like 3 hours. And so they thought, we're onto something here. So they booked me for a year, doing 3 nights a month. And during that time, the people at the Mirage came out and saw me and decided to give me my own theater there 5 years ago.
Jack for a second. Scott Sabella. Tell the Scott Sabella story. Scott is now running the MC.
Oh yeah, Scott. This is great. And I just found this out from Trevor, the president of the Mirage now. Trevor Shear is the president now. Scott Sabella was the one who worked out the deal to hire me. And Trevor, my wife and I were having dinner with Trevor, and Trevor says, yeah, the first time I heard of you, Scott Sabella calls me, and he says, you gotta come over to my house, you gotta see this guy. And Trevor says, okay. So he goes over to his house, and he has it TiVo'd, and he says, this guy, and he played one of my appearances on America's Got Talent. And Trevor said, impressive. And Scott said, I think he's going to be the next headliner at the Mirage. And Trevor's like, yeah, right. And apparently, from what I hear, it was a really, Scott put his neck out for that. Because, it was a bold move, and people all thought it was going to fail. And I never thought it was going to fail. What's weird is, I truly in my heart felt that if people just could see it, they would want to see it. They would want to come. If they knew what I did, they would want to come and see it. I just always had that kind of a confidence in it. And it just never occurred to me that it was not going to be a success. I don't know what that says. Does that say arrogance? No, it's not arrogance. I don't feel like it is. I just feel like I just knew it was fun, and I loved what I did, and And it just never, you know, I think Robin Leach asked me, he says, so were you afraid he was going to fail? I said, no, I just never, it never occurred to me that it would.
You were in front of enough crowds to get a real good feel for
Exactly.
what-
That's really what it was.
Yeah.
You know, 25 years of traveling, doing fairs, schools, everything. I knew that I was onto something. From 2005, people loved seeing the ventriloquism and impressions. They loved it. So I think that's what it was. It was that it just I knew if they saw it, they would. What is it? If they build it, they will come.
Yeah. If I can just throw another one in, tell the story about the fair where you were booked, and one person showed up.
Oh yes. I did a show. This was right before I got the call, so I had a double whammy. I had it was maybe a week before the producers told me I wasn't going to play Vegas. I did a show in Texas, and one 12-year-old kid showed up. And the worst part of that story is not that. I went ahead and did the show because I'm one of those old vaudevillian kind of guys. I'm like, hey, the show must go on. So I'm doing the show. 10 minutes later, the custodians come in and start folding the chairs up. I think my puppet says, "Yeah, I think the show's over." And I've had several people contact me and say, "I was that 12-year-old boy." And I'm like, there's no way to verify that. So.
Here's your next question. What's your name?
Suzanne.
Suzanne, what's your question?
First of all, not all women are after your money. I like your turtle. To your cult, I'm just curious, how many members were in your cult?
It wasn't a big member thing, and we were never about recruiting people. I think at the very most, we only had 12, which again was perfect for my dad because he looked, I think we had 12 plus him, so he looked at himself as the Messiah and the 12 apostles. That's how he would tell us, you know, see, God has put us together, there's 12 of us and myself. So we were never ever trying to recruit. It's just somebody would somehow come in and then they would be added to the fold. And so it was a very small type thing. It was just one of those things where, you know, any cult believes that they have special direction from God and special revelation from God. And it's interesting because when I left my father and I left all that nonsense, I made the decision that I told you I was an atheist for about 10 minutes, and I went, okay, no, God, sorry, I'm not an atheist. I know you're there. And should I tell the coin flip?
Yeah,
okay.
please. Yeah.
Well, the reason I'm not an atheist is I had read in the Bible that God controls the casting of lots, and it says that in like Proverbs or something. And I felt like flipping a coin was like casting a lot, which is kind of dice, you know. And so I told God. My dad had told me that I was going to hell. I told him, I said, Dad, if you are God's representative on earth, Mr. Child Molester, and I told him this, I said, then I don't want any part of that God, and I'd rather spend an eternity in hell away from that God, because I'm not following you anymore. I'm done, you know. And he said, then you're going to go to hell. And I said, fine, I'll go to hell. So I went into a room by myself, and I said, you know, I'm just not going to believe in God because you know, blah, blah. And then I said, wait a minute, God, you know, if you're there, you can control the flip of a coin. So here's what I'm going to ask you. If my dad is right, and I'm going to hell, and there's nothing I can do about it, I'm going to flip this coin and it's going to come out tails. And if you are there, and if I can have a relationship with you, and I can live, you know, a fruitful life and still have heaven and everything without my dad, make it come up heads. And I flipped it and it came up heads. I never looked back.
Let's hope casinos start coin flipping games. You'll be a billionaire. Next question. What's your name, sir?
Mark Germain. I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but where was your mother?
You know, again, she has a book called Keeping Laughter Alive. It's available on Amazon and you know, Kindle and stuff. But my mom was really, the whole purpose of that book is to talk about the type of psychological control that someone can have over you.
She had a horrific life.
A horrific life. You know, she was raped by her father repeatedly growing up. She went into an incredibly abusive relationship with my father, and it's just, you know, it's a cycle type thing. And, you know, my mom has her own demons that she's dealing with. Myself, and luckily I had Taylor to help cast them out, you know, for me. And, you know, my mom's still working on getting those out. But it's something that really destroys everyone around them, everyone. And some people will never recover from it. Thank God he sent Taylor to help me. Because, boy, the one thing about her that's so different from me, and I think one of the reasons why we work so well I live in a fantasy world. My world is all about creative, and everything to me is about art and creation and puppets and fantasy. Taylor sees things with a laser beam accuracy. She sees it as it is. And that really tempers me, so that I'm not off on these tangents of stupidity. She sees things, she sees it. Was that a good way to say it, baby?
You said it.
She said I said it. But seriously, I talk to her about something and she will go, what about this? And I'll go, oh Christ, you've seen that with us when we talked. She will see it from an angle that I never thought of. And so, amazingly, in spite of the fact that there's a 23-year difference, we work. We love being together. And I gotta say, we haven't spent one night apart since we got married. And we spent all our time together. She worked with me. We work together, play together, stay together. We love each other. And so for 25 years, I was on the road, or 18 years in the other marriage. I was on the road 11 months out of the year. And now together all the time and loving it every day.
And you cook.
I do.
And you
every morning she gets a breakfast in bed. You don't want to say anything?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She's done with her stage time for the day. Our next question, what's your name, sir?
Hi, Ron Erickson. Terry, hi. How you doing? I'm way over here.
There you are.
The darkness.
In the dark, sorry. We had the fortunate time to see you at the Elsinore Theater in Salem, Oregon, when you did the benefit for Larry Norman. That was a fabulous show you put on, and everything you do is fabulous. We saw you at the Salem State Fair, too, in Oregon. But my question is, with the horrendous childhood you had, it is amazing to me that you come out of that kind of a cult and still say you're a believer. But are you in a denominational church now, or what or just your own private belief? Where are you?
Yeah, I was going to say this, and because I'm ADD, I always go off on tangents. But I'll finish my statement. When I left my father and I found and I realized that God, I could have a relationship with God on my own, I vowed to myself that I would never, ever, ever allow another human being to tell me what was right for my life, ever, except Taylor. But and any man who's married knows that's the best idea. Okay, so, not Taylor, but your wife. So anyway, the woman is always right. But so no, I'm not involved in any kind of particular church, because I just, even now it's been a long time, but I just can't put myself under the tutelage of another person. I can't. I go to God directly myself. I read my Bible. I pray daily. In fact, before every single show that I do at the Mirage, and here I'm in Vegas, supposedly Sin City, but come on, sin's in every city, really, right? But before every single show, I dedicate that show to God. I tell God, I thank God for giving me the gifts that He's given me, and I ask God to use that show to lift people's spirits, and that they will walk out with the joy of God in their hearts at the end of the show. That's just it's my daily prayer every single show I do. That goes before the show. So, but yes, that's your question. And answer your question, no. But I have a very strong relationship. I thought about it, and I went through a lot of religions, and I studied just about every major religion, and the idea that God loved me so much that He sent His Son to die for me, for my sins, it's just a great idea. I love it. Is it true? I hope it is. I believe it is. Maybe it's not, but it works for me. It works for me. And I'm very
certainly
happy.
have a new respect for you, Terry. Fantastic.
I'll ask a funny one. If it was a dark street corner and you and Jeff Dunham were there, who would win in a fist fight?
Jeff. Hands down, Jeff.
How about Winston and Jeff's puppet?
Yeah, Winston, well, since he can only crawl so fast, he probably would lose too. No, he's a shell.
Yes,
so,
right.
yes, he could just crawl into a shell, which was probably what I would do if I was in a fist fight.
What's your name, sir?
Terry, I'm a retired pastor. Appreciate your struggle with faith, and really appreciate where you're at right now in your faith journey, which continues. If Winston was God, and I see a lot of humor in religion, if Winston became God for you, what do you think He would be saying to you? And what kind of dialogue would you have between yourself and God?
If Winston became God, that's funny.
I think you need to add that.
You know, I truly believe that God expects all of us to just do good to one another. I really do. I think all of the religious rules, and you can come up with every religious rule that you should follow in the world, and if it doesn't involve being kind to one another, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
That's it. I think that's it. That's the only thing he's going to tell you. That's it. You're doing good for the world, you're doing good for one another, and helping your neighbor, then you're where you need to be. I'm very simple. That's all I think.
Good.
So.
Excellent. All right, let's swing over here. Oh, hold on. I'm going to go here, there. There we go. What's your name, sir?
Jerry.
Jerry, what's your question?
I was glad someone brought up Jeff Dunham, so I wanted to ask you, are you friends with Jeff Dunham, and what is your favorite puppet that he uses, if you don't mind me asking?
My favorite puppet he uses is Peanut, and yes, Jeff and I are friends. We email regularly, and we've had lunch, and he's a huge inspiration for me. When I was 10, I saw him. I just started doing ventriloquism. I saw him in Dallas because he's from Dallas also, and he actually took me to his home and showed me his workshop, and it was just a big moment. He doesn't remember it, but I do. So it was, it was much more impactful for me than it was for him. So, but yes, I love Jeff. So.
I can say Peanut's my favorite one too, so I'm glad you mentioned Peanut.
Peanut's awesome.
We have peanuts in common. This is great. All right, we're going down here. I saw a hand come up a little earlier. What's your name, miss?
Hi, I'm Irene Albrecht, and I worked on Miss America a few years ago, and if you remember, Miss Alabama's puppet.
Yes.
Didn't work. What had happened, we, in the dressing room, had left it in the dressing room in a tent overnight, and it poured and rained. And that next day, which was the day Miss Alabama was supposed to perform, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we opened the box and we take the little people out, and the mouths won't work.
Oh.
And Miss Alabama said to me, "What do we do?" And I said, "I don't know, but we're calling Terry Fator." And you fixed it, or someone in your team fixed it.
It was my team, yeah.
5:30, that puppet came back, and Miss Alabama said, "It has never worked better." Thank you for Miss Alabama, but I'll never forget that. You really saved my behind.
Well, wonderful. Thank you very much. Wonderful.
All right, we're double dipping. Yes, next question.
Hi, it's me again. I come up from California every couple months to see your show at the Mirage. Absolutely love it.
Thank you.
The man that does your pre-show, he's phenomenal.
Ben Harris.
How did you find him?
We just held auditions. I came up with the idea that we should have pre-show entertainment and a DJ because it's so much more fun, and I wanted to get people all excited and happy and high energy. And so we just auditioned several people, and man, Ben won hands down. I got to say, when Taylor and this is way before marriage and Taylor auditioned, she walked into the room first, and apparently there were 4 or 5 others, and I turned to the guy with me and I said, "Send the others home. She's hired. I've never seen her. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, ever." And they were like, "You sure you don't want it?" I said, "No, I don't need to see anybody else. I want her." So I hired her like that. But it was kind of like that way with Ben. We had gone through several others, and man, as soon as Ben got on stage, it's like, that's the guy. He's phenomenal. Yeah, he's great. And if you haven't seen the show, you get there early because you're going to want to watch Ben. He's so much fun.
He's so sweet.
Sweet.
He's a nice guy.
Never seen Ben without a smile on his
And
face.
his wife is just as nice.
Yes, his wife is really sweet too.
He stands in the wings, and he dances to himself.
Yes, he does.
Waiting to go
That's
on.
Ben.
He's so full of energy
He is.
before he even steps out onto the stage.
Yeah, we love Ben. He's a great guy.
Tell him we said hello.
We will. I'll tell him we talked about it.
Yeah.
We have reached that time. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I hope, that's one of the reasons why I want to write the book is because now, through my relationship with Taylor, I'm no longer living in a fantasy world. I can see the world as it is. A lot of people saying you need to write another book because You know, here I put this, it was so wild. I put this book out talking about what a great marriage I had, and right after the book came out, we separated. So it's like, whoa, what happened, you know? And now, and I wasn't ready because, you know, it's been a long process. It's been a long growing process, painful. If you've ever been through real change, if you've ever learned to grow, you know it can be a very painful process for myself and for Taylor. I mean, I know I put that poor young lady through hell. I did. And I love her so much for sticking with me, you know, because she could have given up on me at any moment, and she didn't. And what's that?
10 times.
10 times. Yes.
She's gonna slap your hand later on.
Yes. And I thank her so much for sticking with me and knowing that I was broken, and knowing that there were so many issues we had to deal with. And I got to say, I've never felt more centered. I've never felt more confident. I've never felt more at peace in my life. You know, we have 6 dogs, Ziggy included, and I never knew what peace could be in my entire life until now, and it's because of that young lady right there.
Thank you very much, Terry. Thank you, Taylor. You stole the show, no question. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate your support. This is so much bigger than any expectation I had. There's so much love in this room, and this guy is the world's greatest storyteller, and he's so real. It's just unbelievable. I do have to take care of some personal business here real quick. Thanks to some people that are extremely important to me who made this all possible. Thank you to Myron Martin, Glenn Meadis, and the Smith Center staff for welcoming us and for all your help and support. You've been incredible. And a quick note, my wife and I, this is Kara, the blonde here, we got married at the courtyard here a year and a half ago, and then we were the very first to be able to have our wedding reception in here. We didn't pull any strings, we were the first to ask, and it was just, it's our cathedral. It's really a special place for us. Kara's mother is here. Thank you, Jim, for allowing me to have your daughter come into my life.
And let me thank Nani, Taylor's mom, since you just did that, I gotta do the same. And I gotta say, Nani is Taylor's mother, and let me say this, do I have time to say one more thing?
Of course.
Because one of the things that happened with Taylor, 6 months into our relationship, she was kind of staring at me in this weird way, and I'm like, is everything okay? And she said, you don't love me. And I said, yes I do. And she said, no, you don't. And I said, what are you talking about? She goes, you don't know what it means to love. And at first I was hurt, and then I started really looking at my life, and I realized that I had nothing to base love on, because my entire life, every person in my life, love was based on what you did. Even God, from my father saying, if you ever do this, God will abandon you. There was no real lasting love that lasted, that was forever, that was, I love you, end of story, from anyone. And Nani showed me what real love was. That woman right there knows how to love. She loves her two daughters like I've never seen. She taught me, and Taylor taught me how to love unequivocally, absolutely, and what love was. And I thank them, I thank you for that, Nani. So let me just, okay, so that's all.
I want to thank Morning Blend co-host Sean Tempesta. Thank you, great job, Sean. Also thanks to the Downtown Container Park, Southern Wine and Spirits of Nevada. Love you guys. Cal Studio, KTNV Channel 13. Clear Channel Outdoors, and the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Thanks again, everyone, and I will see you outside. Terry has to leave. I'm signing books. Terry has been so gracious to donate a number of CDs that he's selling. I'm selling the book, but every penny goes to the Smith Center Educational Fund. And thank you again for making this happen.
And we'll see you back in June.